able to know how many people are attending this particular seminar? Kind
Yeah,
of.
about 34 right now.
Okay. They can also normally join in whenever they want. Is it during the course of this? Or?
Yeah, they can, in the sense we, at least for the next few meetings. After that, we'll have to close the meeting because it's quite a, administrative nightmare to keep watching. Somebody has to keep watching us who's trying to come in.
Okay.
Well, the counter to that is that sometimes somebody, snips out because of connectivity issues.
Okay. Right.
Then we have to.
So, is there a possibility that we can get some data of who has actually seen this thing, the names and the club or something like that? In the
Not as yet. We're not keeping track of attendance because we haven't got a sign in as yet.
Okay, fine.
Sign in also, we just want them to click and get in, so didn't want to have any sign in and stuff. But we probably will start improving. It's only 60 people, so.
Okay. Anyway, it's a great initiative, and it's a fantastic way to reach out to people all over the country. And, disseminate information live. I think it's awesome. It's one of the nice things that happened in spite of all the COVID issues.
Yeah, thanks. We were doing it for our club in terms of 2 hours of morning fitness. Almost about 3 days after the shutdown was initiated, and so we're doing our fitness, and we continue to do that.
Mm-hmm.
From 26th of March onwards, we were doing it for within the sailors of our club. That was 2 hours in the morning, and then all their classes, maths, physics, chemistry, everything is.
Okay, that's nice.
And then I just spoke to Dikshit, and I said, well, let's, and to the council, and I said, let's do this for everybody. So then I spoke to the coach. He said, yes, he's willing to do this. So.
I think this is awesome. Where, information can reach everyone. And I think that's really great. Okay.
And it's
that's a good, very good initiative. I really appreciate this.
Thanks, Ajit. Well, it's 10 a.m. and it's time to start. Hi, guys. Let me introduce you to Ajit Dias, very familiar face. All of you would have seen him at pretty much every regatta that India organizes. And a little bit of background, a lot of you probably just don't know that Ajit has been sailing since the 80s in Dublin single-handed at the RMYC, the Royal Madras Yacht Club. He thereafter in 2002 co-founded the Tamil Nadu Sailing Association, or TNSA. He qualified as an NJ and NRO in 2009, and then as an international measurer in 2012, which is almost about 8 years ago. Ever since, he's officiated for 46 international events in 22 countries. I mean, that's something else, guys. I wish you were a live audience. You would have given him a clap for that. Last year, he was appointed as an instructor. Now, that's another level. He's been appointed as an instructor and the first ever in Asia. And incidentally, he was the first Indian to qualify as an international measurer. Currently, he's the class measurer. After you qualify as an IM, you need to also qualify as for a specific class. So he's qualified for the 29er. All of you are aware of that, but also for the 420 and the RSX. He's co-conducted 3 clinics and seminars, one in Malaysia, Poland, and Australia. And I think there was one to be conducted at Marway this year, unfortunately, because of the lockdown. But as usual, let's not waste time. I think measurement is one of the most underplayed parts of sailing, and I'm sure Ajit will tell us a few stories of why it is important and how sailors benefit from making sure that the measurements are right. Thanks, Ajit. Thanks for being with us and taking time off. And over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks to him for those kind words. And I was just chatting with Suhaim and saying that despite all the misery that we are undergoing in terms of being locked in for our own good, but at the same time, we are kind of gaining some knowledge through this whole process. So uh, the the topic that Suhaim actually wanted me to speak to you about was about measurements. See, this is a very important and a very less what do you say touched upon subject, especially in sailing, because I know it's very important that you guys train very hard and you also have a fair amount of knowledge of the racing rules of sailing. And when you actually go for a regatta, in India, measurement was not given too much of importance due to various other administrative difficulties, which we have overcome now. And we have come a very long way in the past, especially the past 4 or 5 years. But any championship that is held on an international level requires measurement. And I'm sure many of you might have attended, or if there are coaches here, they will know what it's like to prepare and go for measurement. So, my job here is actually to tell you that uh, there is no need to get stressed for measurement, because this measurement thing is like a big pain for people. As it is, they take a lot of trouble to come for the event and then get the equipment in form and get all the stuff they need in a new place and get settled. And to add to this misery, they have this thing called measurement, and people, come there and sometimes they feel they get harassed because different measurement what do you say, officials have have different ways of looking at this particular important aspect. So I'm going to break some myths for you, first of all, and make it a very pleasurable experience. And I'm also going to quote some, what do you say, real life incidences where some teams come and breeze through measurement. They have absolutely no stress. Many teams come there ill prepared, and they are unfortunately uh, forced to get a little stressed because of this issue. So I'm going to just slowly move into little bit of technicalities. Okay. First thing is I want to clarify that though they call this as measurement, it's not actually measurement. It's actually equipment inspection. Okay. So I'm sure you can see this slide now. So measurement is the general term that was brought in when world sailing, before it was known as ISAF, and before that IYRU. So I think somewhere around the year, I think around 2000, no, 1000, 1906, I think. They discovered that when there are championships, there was some kind of, anomaly in all equipment conforming to a particular standard. So they brought in this system of measurement where they used to physically measure these boats. So in reality, measurement is actually what they do at the place where the equipment is manufactured. It's called a fundamental measurement. Okay, where the hulls, spars, foils, sails are very accurately measured using templates, and the templates are also issued by the builder, and it's also certified by what's called a in-house measurer. Now, an in-house measurer is a person who's inside the factory, appointed by World Sailing, or a specialist appointed by the MNA of the country of the place where this equipment is being built. Okay, but what we are going to talk about is currently is equipment inspection. Okay, now the job of the equipment inspector is to certify and verify that what equipment you use is class legal. Now, what's class legal is, every class has its own class rules. The class rules clearly say what you can do, how you can sail your class, what kind of equipment you should use, and things like that, to make sure that everybody in the class is sailing with the same equipment and nobody has an undue advantage. Now, that's the whole job of a equipment inspector. So this is a job done by somebody to help you, okay, to make sure that you feel comfortable, that you are not or somebody else is not having a undue advantage by doing something which is illegal. So this is something done by an equipment inspector for you. Other than that, there's no other role for an equipment inspector. It's just to help the sailor to be comfortable and have the knowledge that nobody can cheat and rob me of my talent and energy and hard work. Okay. So I think I'm clear about what is an equipment inspector. So coming to the next slide, who are equipment inspectors? Okay. Now, equipment inspectors are a part of a technical committee. From the year 2017, they formed a new committee called a technical committee. I'm sure you would have heard, for any regatta or a race, you have what's called the protest committee, consisting of national judges or international judges or qualified people who are appointed to the protest committee. Then you have the race committee that actually conducts the race in the water. And then earlier, this measurement team used to come under the race committee, but since this became a bit of a complex issue, they created a separate committee called the technical committee. Of course, there is also one more set of race officials who are called international and national umpires. That's used mostly for match racing. Okay, so now measurers have to be qualified and they are known as members of the technical committee. Now, who can be a member of the technical committee? If you're a qualified international measurer, and to get qualified, you have to be appointed by World Sailing. Now, to get appointed by World Sailing, there is a whole process where you have to sit for an exam, which is pretty rigorous. It's time bound, and you have to get a percentage over 80 to pass. And then there is a lot of other procedures. And after that, you can get qualified as an international measurer. There is a system of a national measurer, which I'm very passionate about, and I'm very determined to start a national measurers program in India. And like Suhaim just mentioned that we almost, we could have had one if not for COVID, but I'm sure that all this will be behind us and we will conduct one. And if neither of these two are available, the organizing authority can appoint a competent person with a reasonable knowledge of racing rules of sailing and also some knowledge of the class rules. So a person can be appointed. Okay. Generally, for international events, they have an IM. For national events, they like to have a national measurer. But for national events, which is a ranking event or the nationals, if it is possible, it's good to have an international measurer to make sure that everybody is doing things the right way. So this is a little bit about who are equipment inspectors. Right. Now, I'm going to start the actual process of trying to explain to you how you can make the whole process of your measurement a very comfortable and a enjoyable one. Okay, this is the most important part. So I know there is a lot of data here, but it is just for you to, when this is shared to you, I'm sure you can read it in leisure and understand it better if you concentrate a little bit on what I'm saying and then read the content a little later. But I try my best to make it as simple as possible for you. Okay. So what happens is you come to an event, you bring your own equipment or you get charter equipment, then you make sure everything is in order. Then you make sure that, your transport is organized, your food and lodging and all these things, in the first 1 or 2 days will be a little dicey, but then they'll also be announcing when there will be measurement. They're still using the word measurement. So you know that there is a date. So you're in a little bit of a stressed situation because you want to bring all your equipment also and make sure you're there to get this behind you. Because without getting your measurement done or equipment inspection, as I would like to call it, you cannot take part in this regatta. So it is something, whether we like it or not, we have to undergo. And to undergo this, we have to make sure that it's not a very stressful experience. If you follow these details, what I'm going to give you, and believe me, this is the same thing that is followed from a normal small club regatta to the Olympics. Okay. Maybe the intensity of checking will be less. For a club regatta, the intensity will be less because they know that there is a slightly lower level of sailing. But whereas we keep going up, to up to world championships and continentals and stuff like that, up to the Olympics, the intensity of checking becomes a little more, methodical and more a little down to the nitty-gritties. So, but the process is the same. So what you do first, as soon as you land up at the venue, first thing is what you do is you go and try to register yourself. Okay. Because you have to register yourself for the regatta. If it's a pre-registration, you go and collect your, your other ID cards and whatever they request you to do. So at that time, please request for the measurement form or the equipment inspection form. Most regattas are very organized. They have a small table and they have somebody to hand it over to you. Some of them, you have to ask them. Don't feel bad. Ask them for the form. Okay. So as soon as you collect this form, now these forms are designed differently by each international measurer. There is no standard except for a few classes who are insisting on standards. So some of them are easy to understand. Some of them are little complex. I myself in this past 8 years, I found some of the forms are, I'm sure many of you are actually nodding with me and saying, yes, we cannot understand what they are written there. I agree with you, but can't be helped because each one has their own way of doing things. I personally have, because fortunately I come from a graphic arts industry and I am in the printing business, and I understand designing forms is an art. The whole idea is to make it not complicated, to make it as simple as possible, and also to make it easy for the person to fill up. So I've got a small sample here in the same slide. Maybe you can see it or you can see it later. So what you do is you pick up the form, fill up the first basic details that you know, like your name, your club name. If you have a, like for instance, if it's a YI registration number, you have to fill that up, or if it's World Sailing registration number, you have to fill it up, and all these basic things. Then the next important part is a record of your equipment. Now, this is what equipment inspector is actually looking for. This is a very valuable document for him. Here you are writing that this is the hull number, this is the number of my sail or the button number or whatever is there in that sail, the serial number, and this is the number for the spar, and so on and so forth. Depending on each class, some classes require certain details, some classes do not. Like for instance, the lasers do not require any serial number for the spars. Whereas I think even the optimists have numbers, but some of them do not enforce it. So look for the numbers in your equipment and fill it up. If you have any doubt, please do not fill up the wrong information. Don't feel bad. Doesn't matter. Let him be any big guy or any big regatta. Walk up to him innocently and tell him, sir, can you please explain to me what number has to be filled up here? I'm sure everyone in the TC, I mean, they're expected to do it. They will help you. They will tell you. And I'm going to mention this many times during this regatta. I mean, during this small little presentation, that your way of approach to the officials is very, very, very important. Because at the end of the day, they are all human beings, and some of them are very nice by nature. Some of them are a little strict. Each one is different. So if you can have the right attitude, the smiling face, walk up to him and ask him politely, even the strictest and the most rigid and the bad guy with a bad mood will answer you. So I'm going to repeat this many times because this is out of sheer personal experience, which I will be sharing with you. If you're nice to that person, and if you're kind, and if you ask him in a nice way, he will help you and fill up the correct information, and also make sure that you put your signature. If it's a double hander, the helm, I think normally is the only person who's required to sign. And if it's a single hander, of course, only one person is there to sign, and put the date. Okay. Now, another thing is that almost all regattas will put up a schedule on the notice board. They will tell you club wise or country wise or class wise who comes when. Please take a quick photo of that and store it in your phone, or all these things are now being shared online. There are so many beautiful online platforms which have come for regattas, like there is a platform called Racing Rules of Sailing. It's a beautiful platform where everything is, all notices, everything comes online. But the notice board is going to be there. It's not going to go away. This is only an additional information to have it on your mobile. So please go and check when you need this to come to you. I mean, when you need to be there for that. So don't come in a haphazard way and block the entrance. Form a queue, follow the queue. So these are the basic things that I wanted to tell you. Okay. Now, this is a small bit of information I thought I will share with you. Sorry, is that for big regattas, normally there is a document called equipment regulations, which is shared. Now, this is nothing. It's just a information for the coaches or the clubs to tell you before you come for inspection what what you're expected to. I mean, at least how your boat should be and what the equipment inspectors expect from you. Okay, it's clearly written there. It is done right from the Olympics down to the what do you say, any international regatta. Now we have started slowly introducing it to even national level regattas, because when you have a document like this, you know exactly what they want you to come with, how your boat should come, what should be in it, what should not be in it, how it should be rigged or it should be unrigged. So it is there. So if you can request your organizing authority always to kindly share the equipment regulations. They in turn will ask the measurer to prepare one and send it. So this is just to keep you prepared. So you will not get any sudden last minute, like jolts, like, oh shit, they never told us this should be there or that should be there. So this is a document that you can request. And I'm also requesting all the future organizing authorities to prepare a document like this. Okay. Now that you have finished all these things, you've got your forms, you're going to join the queue. First and most important thing is you have to check whether all the equipment that you have is class legal. Now, what is class legal? Class legal is each class has a certification system that the sails are made by somebody, but the class will certify it and give one sticker. Now the hull is made by someone. The class, once they have the inspection done, the class will give a class plaque. Like this, for all the equipment, there is a class certified kind of a system there. Make sure that you have class legal equipment, because equipment not approved by the class is illegal. So you cannot, you will come all the way to the measurement and you'll be sent back, and you may not have something to replace in the last minute. So make sure it's class legal. Okay. Now, a very important point I want to stress here is that many times when we go overseas, or almost always, you get chartered equipment. Now, a lot of us assume because it's supplied, that's the word they use, or chartered to you, it will be class legal. Please don't assume that, because the people who are chartering it to you themselves don't know, because they get it from somebody and they just give it to you. So when you get a chart equipment, first inspect all the stuff. Make sure that everything is in good condition. Make sure that they are class legal. Okay. And if you have an issue, bring it up to them. Okay. That is one of the reasons where I strongly recommend that it's a good idea to come 1 or 2 days before the event, especially for a international event or any event happening overseas, because you really don't know what can happen there. It's not something that you know for sure. So you will be spending a little bit of time trying to figure out your issues or getting replacement for stuff. So I would like to ask all team leaders and coaches to tell your clubs or your seniors that try to send the team at least 2 days in advance. It really helps in so many ways, if not earlier. Okay. And whenever you have any doubt about any equipment and you feel it may not be class legal, please approach the technical committee and ask them. Don't hesitate to ask them. Okay. And then one very important tip I want to give you is that carry a copy of the class rules. If you're a 470 sailor, make sure you have a class rules book with you, because everything is written there. Sometimes it's difficult to understand, but then most of the times it can be understood. And it's a good idea to have it ready. Don't go looking for it. Okay. It's just one small, you can get a printout. Every class association has put it up in their website. You can download it and take a printout and carry it with you. Okay. This is a very important thing, which I found in many regattas. People don't know the class rules. They don't have access to information. They just look at their coach. The coach does something that he has heard from somebody else. So when we tell them, they are a little upset, and they try to say things like, oh, it was not checked like this in the last regatta. Why are you doing this? Then I have to open the book and show it to them. And then they walk away feeling very bad. So it's a good idea to have a copy of the class rules. So this is a very important thing. And you don't have to memorize the class rules. You have a problem. You don't know what spars are allowed. Open that part in the spars and just see whether that number is allowed or that shape is allowed or that particular thing. It's clearly given. Okay. And despite that, if you have a problem, you can always ask. Don't feel bad. Okay. Going to the next part. Now, some classes require certification. Okay. They have a certification for hull and for sales. You have to check your class rules. For example, Optimist class requires a hull and sales certificate. The 470 and 420 class requires only a hull certificate. Since the sales that are manufactured, they themselves do the certification in-house, and you will see one small little signature and the person who has measured it. Okay. Some classes like probably 29er, 49er and RSX and many more do not need any certificates at all. So please first check your class rules whether your class requires certification, because it has become mandatory. And I am very happy to note that in India, almost all the major events, they are insisting on certification. And I'm very happy to hear that, because somebody who has a hull or a sail that doesn't have a certificate can tamper that, can make it lighter, bigger, smaller. And that's not a good thing, because he may get an advantage. And after all the hard work and honesty, and if he comes a little bit, all you need is just less than a second to beat you. Okay. And less than a second is a lot of time in sailing sometimes. So you have to be really, really careful that you have your certificates and come prepared with it. This is something that I've seen in most Indian regattas, and also in some regattas overseas. People are not aware and they don't bring the certificate. Even if it's a chartered equipment, please ask them to give you the certificate. Okay. Now, some small tips on how to find out if you have class legal equipment. All the sales of every international racing class will have some kind of a certificate. Okay. That's like a sticker. The class association will give you, I think you can see that on the left side, there is that Optimist sail, which has a Optimist kind of a, small logo with a serial number. And there are some classes where this is ISAF, the old sticker. The World Sailing itself will give one sticker to say this has been certified by a World Sailing measurer. So please look for that. That's very important. Have the certificates in hand before you come for the measurement. Don't go looking for it when the measurer asks for it, because that's a waste of time. You may be sent back and you have to rejoin the queue and you have to waste another 2-3 hours. So have it in your hand. Okay. Even photocopies are accepted. Soft copies, I accept soft copies, but I don't know about the others. So photocopies are accepted, because we just want to make sure you have some document which says the number of the equipment that is already there in front of you. Okay. That's one thing. Similarly, sale numbers are also, something that you have to be very, very careful about, because sale numbers, most classes tell you what is the size of each number, how much space should be there in between. Now, to a normal person, they will ask, how does this help a guy sail faster, or why is it that they are acting so stupid and checking and things like that. Now, sometimes, I also used to think some people are being a little too, rabid about, checking the size, and it's 5 millimeters smaller and this and that. But later on, I came to know that there are two major reasons why they are insisting for each class to have a uniform sail number and spacing. One, the most important thing is for the jury and the race committee to identify your sail. Now, the human brain is very good at remembering a particular design, and then if you see the same design again, it can recognize it faster than something which has a little deviation. So in a very choppy wind condition and very fast paced race, there's very little time to see things quickly and note down. So they want uniformity for that class. So that is one main reason. Another thing is, it is a class rule. We just cannot question them. They said this is how it should be, and we have to obey them. So please make sure that your sale numbers are what you are pasting is as per the class rules, and if the space in between is also exactly mentioned as per that. And if you are going overseas and if you have a country flag, make sure that the country flag is also as required to be as required by the class rules, and also the size. Now, there are some classes, please remember, international classes, which says that you have to use stickers of country flags only made by certain vendors. Maybe there are good reasons for that, because those stickers are made in such a way that they won't come off, the colors will be uniform, the size will be uniform, and there are a lot of reasons mainly I felt that was what was most important was the quality of stickers made was specially made to be stuck on a sail, which is not a surface which is easy to stick anything, because it has got a slightly, kind of an oleophilic feel, so that things can just peel off very easily. So there's a very special glue that is being used. And also, I think they want some uniformity. So please make sure that your class, if it says you have to buy the flag from a particular vendor, make sure of that. And there is also one other thing, that there are some classes. uh, Sorry, before that, I want to talk about this one small thing about advertisement. Advertisements on sales can be done. It has to be first permitted by the organizing authority, and then the if it is not mentioned in the class rule where you can stick the sale, because it says that you can stick the sale, the advertisement logo of your sponsor only in certain places, and some classes clearly tell you where you can stick it. If the class is not mentioned that, there is a document called the equipment rules of sailing. In that, it mentions where you can stick. So it's a little technical. It's better that if you have a doubt where I can stick it, check with your technical committee, and they will help you. And there is one other thing. Sale numbers are generally, for most classes, are given by the class association of that country. But there are some classes, for example, the 49er, you cannot put any number that you like. You have to apply to the 49er class association, International 49er class association, and they have a small fee to become a member, and they'll give you one number. Okay, that is the number you should put there. It's very important. I learned it the very hard way, because I myself, I was doing multi-class regattas, and then this small bit of information slipped my mind at one continental event, and I was pulled up by my seniors, because I didn't realize that it was so critical, that the class is very strict that they have to give the number. And they have also a system that if you're the world number one, they'll give you number one, things like that. And if you're world number two, they'll give you two. So they want to maintain something. So please check with your class rules whether you can generate the number from your own national authority, or whether you have to write to the international authority. Okay. All this done, and when you're coming there, the most important thing is, when your sail is being brought for inspection, make sure it's in a dry condition. Even if you have sailed, in the morning, make sure it is, put out in the sun, or, drying, it's dried in the breeze. And when you come, don't come with a wet sail, because it's too complex, topic for me to talk to about right now, because it's a nightmare to measure a wet sail. Okay. So just remember, your sail has to be in a dry condition. If you have measurements, try not to sail that day. And if you're sure that your measurement timing is late evening, go in the morning, come back, give sufficient time for it to dry. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Okay. Coming to the hull. We discussed about hull certificates. Yes, some classes are very strict. They require you to bring a hull certificate. There is a sample of a 470 hull certificate. So the hull certificate actually, is like an RC book for your vehicle. It says that this is a hull made by a licensed builder. It has been measured. And if you look at that hull certificate, it's like a small book. It has so much of detail to say what is the beam length, what is the transom length, and hundreds of other information will be there. So this is something that you have to carry with you for measurement. Make sure you have it before you join the queue. This is, I just want to make it as short as possible to tell you. It is very, very important. And also, many regattas require your boat to be of a specific weight. So they will be doing hull weighing. So to weigh a hull, it has to be completely dry, because water, even say around 100 ml of water, can add approximately 100 grams. So that is not allowed. When they see your boat is wet, they'll open the ports to see whether any water is inside. They will send you out again. So make sure that it is absolutely dry. If you've gone out sailing the previous day or the day in the morning, open all the ports, put a sponge inside, and make it absolutely dry before you come for measurement. Okay, otherwise they will send you back again, and you're going to waste another whole day, or maybe they'll tell you come back when everything is over. So because they are under tremendous pressure, please remember that these people who are in charge of equipment inspection have to do these things in just 1 or 2 days, and they have to do a good job. They have to make sure that everything is in order, because if something goes wrong, they will be pulled up. So they will be a little stressed. So don't make things difficult for them, and also make it easy for you. Make sure it is absolutely dry. Don't come and try to argue and say, no, no, it was like this, now it is that, and this, that. Try your best to keep it as dry as possible. Okay. And another most important thing is, most of the class rules clearly say, when you go for a hull weighing, what should be on the boat and what should not be on the boat. Okay. Now I'm just giving you an example. For 49er, everything has to be removed from the hull. Nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm sure the 49ers sailors will know what a pain it is to re-rig the boat, but that is what the class rule says. Everything, not a single bit of rope. Okay. Whereas for the 470, everything has to be loaded into the hull. Everything except sails, jib luff wire, and portable equipment. Like, for instance, even tow rope is a portable equipment. So that clearly says what is a portable equipment. You look at the class rule. So everything has to be put inside and brought. Also, some classes clearly say whether your corrector weights. Now, you know what is a corrector weight. When a boat is manufactured, it has to be of a certain weight. If it is a little underweight, they have to add a little bit of weight to correct it to come to the required weight. Now, some classes very clearly say when you go for equipment inspection, you have to remove them. Okay, I can explain why. I will come to that if I have some time. But some classes clearly say don't touch it. Let it be there on the boat, because the corrector weight, what is in the boat, is mentioned in your hull certificate. That this hull has, we have added a corrector weight of probably 1.738 grams, and it is here. They would have mentioned that. So don't touch that. Okay. Example. Now, for the fin, corrector weights are added always, because it is always better when you manufacture a boat to make it slightly lighter than heavier, because if it's heavier, you cannot do anything. You cannot chip off anything from a molded boat like that. So they make it slightly lighter, and then they add some corrector weights. So for a fin, it is to be left as it is. Whereas for a 49er and 470 and some other classes, you have to actually remove all the corrector weights. In the previous regatta, if somebody has put it there, it also says where the weight should be placed. So you look for it and remove everything. Okay. Then, most importantly, if you feel that your class requires corrector weights, coordinate with the OA well in advance and say, sir, I may require corrector weights. Who's in charge of that? Because you cannot carry lead and go from one country to another and all. It's practically, I don't know how possible it is. I mean, you're already carrying a lot of equipment and weight. So some people do carry, they have different pieces of weights and all that, because they are highly organized. Some countries are extremely organized. They have everything with them. But I would recommend that immediately contact somebody with your organizing authority and tell them, I may require corrector weights. So can you please tell me who I should contact? Okay. And also, whenever you come for hull weighing, you have to assist the technical committee, because they have to carry the boat and place it on the small little cradle on the weighing scale. Don't just stand there as if, that's not your job. Please be very obliging. All these small things will give a very nice positive vibe. And even if you have some small issues, the technical committee should help you. In my opinion, some don't agree with me, but I feel we are there to help you. So we will tell you, look here, you have this small problem. I don't mind. Go and fix it and come back. I will certify it. So be nice to them. I'm repeating this. Okay. Then the foils and spars also have to be in a dry condition. Check with the technical committee how you want them to be presented. Okay. Because if there is an equipment regulations published, they will tell you this is how your foil should be bought. This is how your spar should be brought. This is how your hull should be brought, and this is how your sail should be brought. If it is not available, just walk up to them and say, I have measurement today or tomorrow. How do you want your your foils and spars? And he will tell you. Okay. That is his job. He's supposed to tell you. Okay. Now, for example, when you bring a laser rudder and, when you bring a laser rudder, make sure you remove the tiller and ropes. You can see a small picture there without that. So this is important, because we will be checking the angle of the rudder. So with the ropes and the tiller, it's not possible. So at that time, we'll say, go and remove it and come. Now you're holding up the queue, you're irritating the person because he's not able to do the job. He has very little time. And then you may be asked to go and come back again. So please check with them how the equipment should be brought. Okay. And also check, when you check with them, check for the mast also. Some of them say you can leave certain things there because the level of inspection may be not so intense and they know what they're looking for. So I know when I have very little time, I know what I'm looking for. I don't ask them to remove many things. I just say, don't remove this, don't remove this, remove this. So check with them. So this is important. The key is to ask. I repeat again, don't assume, or don't ask, or don't watch some other guy doing something and assume that he's right. Maybe he's absolutely wrong. You go up and ask. Don't feel bad about it. I'm sure they will answer. Okay. Now, some classes require what is called limit stops. I'm sure the 470 and 420 sailors are very aware of this. Okay. And of course, the Optimus sailors are very aware of the bands. They know what is the meaning of the band and where their sail should end and things like that. So they are called limit marks or limit stops. Okay. Check the class rules, find out where those marks should be and what is the stopping equipment. Like for instance, you will see in the small picture there is a boom and there is also one mast and there is a small little rivet that is like a stopper which prevents it from going beyond a point, because the class rules say that this is as far that you can pull up your sail. Okay. So if it is not there, they will send you back. So, and it's a big pain trying to get some equipment and trying to fix it in the last minute. So please check if your class rule says that there are some limit stops or some things that should be there. Prepare everything and come. Okay. This is a very, very important thing, especially in the 470 class for the Olympic classes and also the 420 class. And I'm sure there are some other classes which have these stoppers. Okay. Now I'm moving to a very important part of the entire sport, which is the personal flotation device, commonly called as PFDs. Now, of late, especially in the last 3 years, World Sailing has put a lot of importance to this because there were a lot of accidents that has happened and bad things have happened all over the world because some classes did not require this at some point of time. They felt that these are all adult sailors, they can hang on to the boat or they can swim like a fish. But they found out that no, even the best of a sailor can get hit on his head on a bad day, in a high wind day, by a boom, and he can pass out and fall into the water and he can drown in 2 seconds. All it requires is a glass of water to get into your lungs. So they have made it mandatory for almost all classes to have a flotation device. Okay. Now, there are some important things about this flotation device. Some of them have life jackets, as they call it, which look like flotation devices. They look like life jackets, but they're not. Okay. They are just some like homemade looking stuff or made by some unauthorized guy. Okay. It is very important that the life jacket or the flotation device, as we call it, must conform to some safety standards. For sailing, they have clearly mentioned it should be ISO 12402, and they have a thing called level 50. Or if you're buying a European equipment, it is EN 393. Check for the label inside. It's very, very important because you are expected to wear a legal approved ISO or EN flotation device. Okay? Because there may be a standard penalty or you can be disqualified. So many bad things can happen if you don't have a proper PFD. Okay. What is most important is also based on your body weight, get the size. It's mentioned there. If you're 50 to so on 60, you need S. If you're 60 to 80, you need M. Like that, it is there. Don't get something that is comfortable and small and wear it because that is considered as illegal. Okay. Now, please buy a PFD from a reputed brand because you cannot save money in this. I want to repeat again and again. Every paise or rupee or dollar you're spending on this is to save your life. And emergencies, because ours is a water sport and it's an adventure sport and conditions are dynamic every second. It's not like a hockey ground or a cricket field. Everything is standard there. Everything changes every quarter second probably. So your mind is racing, thinking about other things. And the last thing I want you to have on your mind is your life and your safety. So make sure that you have a class legal one, which is perfectly meant for you. And please bring it along with your boat for inspection because there are many equipment inspectors who want to see it before they give you the okay. Okay. This is another bit of safety equipment that has been recently being introduced even in the adult classes, and many adults don't like it because they thought vessels are only meant for optic kids, because they felt that it is not important. Then they realized there were some really very bad situations where things, I mean, their boards or boats got drifted, and and there was a howling wind and nobody could hear them, and there were bad things that happening. So many classes are slowly bringing in a regulation that you should carry a whistle. And not only that, they have a special certification for a whistle called SOLAS, which stands for Safety of Life at Sea. It's an international maritime treaty which was set as minimum safety standards, how it should be constructed, and it also has some ISO and EN certification. So for classes like RSX, I'm talking about adults, okay, and 29ers, it is mandatory. They cannot have any other whistle but a SOLAS approved whistle. For optimists, it is mandatory, but many events, they are trying to slowly tell them, though unfortunately till now optimist class rules hasn't mentioned the word SOLAS. They said whistle, and it should be tied to your PFD with a rope, but they're recommending a SOLAS because the SOLAS whistle is designed in such a way that it will work even when you have capsized and there's water in your vessel, because it doesn't have a ball inside. It has a very different system, and the tone and the sound that comes out of it is of a very particular frequency which can travel very far. And the people who are in the maritime industry know that sound, and they know there is a distress call. So please remember this. And it's not difficult to get. It's quite inexpensive. Please buy one and keep one for yourself. Okay, this is for you. It's important. It's mandatory. Okay. Now, another part of the safety equipment that is a must is a tow rope, also known as a painter. For many classes, it is a part of the safety equipment. Check your class rules. Some class rules say you must have it. So for that, you must have. They also specify very clearly what is the diameter and what is the length of the rope. Make sure you have the right one. During spot checks, there will be spot checks in any regatta. If they found that you are without a tow rope, you may be given a standard penalty. And what's the point in struggling so hard and getting some position? I'm not saying everybody has to come first, but you're improving your standard day by day. From 50th, you can come to 40, then 30, and you're moving up. What if you get a standard penalty and then it brings you back to 50? I think it's not worth it. Trust me, all these small things should not affect you and affect your performance. Please make sure that you find out whether you need a tow rope or not. And if you need one, make sure you get the one that is prescribed as per your class rules. Okay. So this is another mandatory equipment. If your class needs, it should be brought for inspection. They will ask you, where is your tow rope? Just be ready to show to him. Okay. Now that you have entered the inspection area and you are presenting your boat. So I mentioned this earlier. I'm saying it probably for the umpteenth number of times. While presenting your boat for inspection, please be polite, be courteous, and remember, she is doing a voluntary service. It's not a paid job. It's a voluntary service just to help you, just to make sure that you are sailing a class legal equipment, so that somebody will not protest you. It can still happen, but then you're sailing with an equipment that is class legal, and then somebody else is not sailing in an equipment that is illegal, so that he will get an advantage over you. So he's doing you a favor as far as possible, even if the inspector is in a bit of a, not a very nice guy and he's always yelling and all that. Just ignore all that, because he's probably under stress, or probably he's many times when we go for events, it's very sad, though we tell them we need all this stuff, but when we go there, we don't see anything there. And we can't go 1 or 2 days in advance. We are all professionals who have our own jobs and, industries. So we can just land up probably 1 day or a half a day before the event, if we are lucky. Or sometimes due to flight delays, anything can happen. So when we go there, we don't see stuff. We can also not be in the best of moods, but I try very hard not to let that affect me. But some people can be a bit short-tempered. Just be polite to them. They will not be rude to you. But if they are short-tempered and they are really stressed and they don't have anything they need, and you go and try to, be a little arrogant, it can, flare up the situation and it's not good for you. Okay. So please, I repeat again, just a smile and, a courteous way, you can get anything done. Also, if you have a problem with language, because world sailing is very clear about this. If you cannot speak the language they understand. Let's say that you're from Andhra and you can speak only Telugu and you don't know English or French or whatever they are speaking in, tell them, I don't know. They have to find a way. It's their job. They have to find a way. They will either put you through Google Translate, or they will do something, or call some friend who knows Telugu and ask him to, translate for you. Do not feel shy that, oh, how do I speak to him? I don't know the language. He's speaking with an accent. Who cares? He speaks with an accent. That is his problem. Okay. Be polite and say, sir, I need translator. You have a right to ask for a translator, or you have a right to get it translated. Okay. The world is very small now. You can write in Telugu and give it. He will take a photo, send it to somebody in this world and get a translation for you. It can be done. So if there is an interpreter, please ask for an interpreter. So I want all of you to feel extremely confident about this. Don't feel bad. I know many of our Indian sailors, especially from North, who are not very comfortable in English, have come in the past. Now, of course, everybody is very good in English. And of course, the Chinese sailors are the worst I've met, because I feel so sorry for them. They sometimes don't even have a translator. So we try to find somebody, we have sometimes an IJ or somebody who's from China and he can speak. So ask for a translator. In fact, these people are sometimes shy. I tell them, I will get you a translator. So many people may not do that because they'll have other things on their mind. Ask for a translator. I've repeated this many times because of that. Because I've seen this, people don't understand, then they get into trouble for no fault of theirs. Okay. Then when you come for inspection, come well prepared. Your inspection will be over in a jiffy, because you have already done everything that I told you to do in the beginning. And then you'll also save a lot of time for the TC and he'll be happy to send you off. Okay. Now, once your inspection is over, sometimes they sign over your equipment or they put your equipment limitation marks or something like that. Do not attempt to replace anything. If you have any repair or anything that has to be done, do not do it without the written permission of the chief measurer or the equipment inspector. Especially when there is any equipment, weights which are added to it or anything like that, do not do it, because it can get you into a lot of trouble. Not just fair sailing, you can go up to 69 for tampering with your equipment. Okay. So please do not do it. Ask the equipment inspector, sir, this needs to be repaired. This thing happened. It slipped out of my hand or it came out. Okay. So please do that. Now, I already mentioned what is an equipment limitation mark a little bit earlier. Many of you know some people stick stickers. Okay. This is just to make sure that we have seen it. We are happy with it. And this is the equipment you are going to use and you cannot change this. Okay. So this is just a kind of a check for us to know that, okay, this guy has brought his equipment and he has checked it. Now, during the regatta, it is your job to keep looking at these stickers or the marks to make sure it is there. If by chance it has come off, immediately inform the committee. Okay. Because if the equipment inspector finds you sailing with an equipment that doesn't have these stickers or a signature, you can get protested. They may suspect that you have changed your equipment during the course of the event. So don't give them that opportunity. Don't do this, because it can make your life very difficult and you'll feel very disappointed. Many times I've seen people do it not intentionally. They don't know. They don't check their equipment. They don't know. So please be careful. Another thing is, during the event, there is a chance that equipment can get damaged due to natural causes while sailing. So there is a document called equipment replacement or repair form. It will be there with the technical committee or with the race office. Fill up the details. Very clear, very simple. It says what happened, when it happened, and what is broken. Bring the broken part and bring the one that you want to replace. Show to him. 99% they will just, remove the stickers from the old part and give you permission to use the new part. And if there's a new part number that has to be rewritten in the form, he will do it. Do not replace it without the approval of the equipment inspector. I repeat again and again. It is a waste of your entire effort if you try to do that, because you must remember that there are competitors who are waiting to sneak on you. I don't blame them because it's a very competitive sport. They will come and they can protest to say that you're using equipment that is not approved. They can protest. Okay, so please don't do it without the permission. If the equipment was damaged while sailing on water, I know a lot of coaches have this question in their mind. And if the equipment inspector is not available on water, there's a very good chance because they are last on the list to get a rib or anything like that. So just go up to the race committee and tell them, point out to them and say, this is broken. My tiller extension has to be changed, or my rudder is broken, or my centerboard is split. Show to them, just replace. If you have a spare on the water, replace it on the water. Okay. Then as soon as you reach a show, go and pick up a form, fill up what you have to fill up, go to the equipment inspector and tell him, I changed this on the water and I told the race committee. He'll ask you, can you please name the person? If you can remember that guy's name, fine. If not, he will definitely make one. There's a system where he makes one small mark. He may write down your sale number, but he will remember. He'll say, yeah, this guy came and showed it. Because they have very little time to look at you between races. But they'll say, yeah, I know this guy came, he pointed. Yeah, that's all we need. And we will say it's fine and we'll give it to you. But this has to be done before the next race on the following day. I hope I'm clear about this. It can be done on water. If the technical committee is not there, just inform anybody in the race committee board, anyone, even the lowest guy in the race committee board. Somebody has to be told that you're changing. That's all. And as soon as you come back to the show, please make sure that you do that. Okay. Some events have on-water inspection. Please cooperate with the equipment inspector. They will be stationed near start finish. I'm sure you have experienced this. Sometimes you also may be informed verbally that when you reach a show, please go to the measurement tent. And when you're going there, please don't tamper with anything. Even accidentally, don't try to change anything. Just go as it is, because I am 100% sure, because I do it. I know what I'm looking for and I'm suspecting something and I've seen something is wrong. So when you come to the tent and if that is changed, that will be a very serious problem. So be honest and approach it. Sometimes you make honest mistakes and they have the power to forgive you. They don't have to charge sheet you or give you a penalty every time. There are honest mistakes and it's not done with an intention to get an advantage. So be honest, go straight to the tent. Do not tamper with the equipment. Okay. Now, sometimes you have some clarification that you need from the technical committee. Of late, we are encouraging people to put it in writing so that the reply also is given to you in writing and put up in the notice board. One small example is there are some classes that says the mast from serial number so-and-so to serial number so-and-so can be used. And then from this to that can be used. There is some in between numbers, something has happened. So it is not. So some people have this doubt, though they do not do, they can get this information on the class rules, but they don't sometimes have access. So when you have a doubt, I'm using this mask with serial number, can I use it? Means he will check the documents or he will find out and he will put it in writing and put it in the notice board, so that your competitor, no, he won't waste time going to protest and say, oh, he's got a wrong mask. It's not that. He'll go and see and he'll keep his mouth shut and things will go on. So it's a good idea to put it in writing. And also check the notice board every day before and after races. I'm sure you do it for your position, but please check for that. There's a small section for technical committee. Please check, because there may be some cases where you may be called for some random inspection. Please make sure it is there. Okay. Finally, I had to kind of rush through this. I know you have a lot of doubts and we may have a few minutes to clarify that. The technical committee, as I said earlier, is only here to make sure that you have a level playing field, to reassure honest participants that no one gets an undue advantage by using illegal equipment. Be respectful and polite, and they will be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much. And I think we may have a few minutes, and if there are any questions, maybe I can answer them. And also, I want to tell you that this will be shared to you, and you can write to me. My email address is there, and I'll be more than happy to clarify anything. I'm on WhatsApp. Wherever I'm in the world, I'm sure I can reply as long as I'm awake. Okay. So thank you very much once again.
Thanks, Ajit. That's really generous of you to offer your services even when you're out of the country. The one question that has come from quite a few people, and that is, don't you think that the very often the penalty that a boat has to pay as a consequence of, let's say, having maybe a sticker which came off in the middle of a race, or let's say even in the worst case, if by mistake they measured a certain centerboard or a rudder and used another one for the race, let's assume that he is hauled up by the measurer, and subsequently the tiller, or I mean the rudder or centerboard which they use measures perfectly. Don't you think it's too much of a penalty sometimes? I've seen, almost about 20, 30 points being deducted, or a certain percentage being deducted. And that's too high given the fact that the sailor didn't have any advantage at all.
Okay. See, there are two parts. One is the sticker, another one is change of equipment. Okay. Now, when it comes to stickers, personally, I would never penalize anybody or protest because I already have that equipment number. Suppose there is a mast and it has a particular number. I have it in my record. I'll just check and see whether that same mast or thing is still there. And then the stickers that I use cannot come off. And even if they come off, it's very easy to see because they are that, that tamper-proof stickers. But the others use ordinary stickers. So I think at this point of time, some, judgment has to be used by the inspector. He cannot randomly, the benefit of doubt should be given to that sailor.
The
So-
question actually is largely to do with something like, let's say, a selection trial where a country wants to actually send their best sailor. So if their best sailor, for example, I mean, sticker is a different issue. Let's assume there is actually a different rudder or a different centerboard used.
Coming to that point, see, when
Selection trials for a penalty can be quite dramatic.
I'll address that penalty point as soon as I finish this. See, when you change equipment, it is illegal. It is not allowed. You cannot change. You have brought a piece of equipment for inspection. You are expected to use that, and you have signed on the form saying that you will not do anything illegal. So I want to tell you, you cannot do this and say I did it by mistake. You cannot change it. It is just as simple as that, because people can change intentionally. They can fix some equipment. They can bring the class legal equipment, get it approved. Then according to weather conditions, you can change equipment. I've seen things changed like that in the past because of weather conditions. Light sailors with light winds, light sailors with heavy winds will have an advantage if they change the equipment. So it is illegal. You cannot do it. As far as the penalty is concerned, it is not in our hands. We can only bring it to the notice of the authorities. There is an authority which is called the protest committee or the jury. It is their job to make sure that everybody is getting some just, whatever it is, penalty or justice is the word I'm looking for. So I cannot comment on the penalty because it doesn't come under our purview. I do agree that sometimes it's very draconian, especially for the Optimus classes. I don't agree with it, but I have absolutely no say in it and no control over it. So this is something the class has to address with the class rules and with the jury. And for Optimus, they've also recommended standard penalties, which are so high, which I am totally, I don't see eye to eye with that, but that's a personal opinion of mine. I have absolutely no control over the penalty. But all I can say is you should not change the equipment. It is illegal. You're doing it with the knowledge. If you have done it accidentally, still they will say that you have done it intentionally. So I'm very sorry to say that you cannot change equipment.
Yeah. Thanks, Lakshmi, for that question. And actually, there's another question that just popped up, which I think is very important. It's from Ashish Vishwakarma. Can we not have a standardized process wherein we have extra measured equipment, let's say even for a team or even for individuals, where you have an extra measured rudder or centerboard in case one breaks? You've already measured, it's already snapped. So the measurement committee does not waste time, and the sailor also just switches equipment without a problem.
Okay. Unfortunately, the class rules do not allow that. The class rules are very clear. It says you can bring one rudder, one centerboard, one hull till it gets damaged or destroyed. But there are some class rules which says, like for instance, the 49er, you can have a spare tiller. It says you can have a, like I think even for the fin, you can have a spare sail measured along with your sail in case you destroy your first sail. So the class rules are sacrosanct. We cannot change even one comma from that. So unfortunately, the class rules for each class says most of it says only one piece of equipment can be measured and approved.
Ashish, I think you'll have to write to the class association to see how that can be changed for class.
No, no. No, this is the international class that controls this thing.
Sure.
They do not allow and they will not allow. I think it's a waste of time. It's a good idea to have a spare. The moment you break it, you bring it to him. He's going to certify it and give it to you in a matter of minutes. So it's not a big deal. Everybody does it. People break equipment almost every day in a bad wind day. I mean, on a heavy wind day. So have some spares if you can afford it. That's the best thing I can advise you.
Sure. There's a question from Pankaj Kumar of INWTC. How are open classes different from closed classes?
Okay, you're talking about open class rule and closed class rule. Okay, that's a very clear definition. Okay, there are no such things as open class and closed class. This is a little difficult to understand, but I'll try my best. An open class rule means if it is clearly not mentioned that you should not do it, like for instance, if they say you should not have an extra block in this part, if it doesn't say that, you can have anything that you want. Okay, that is an open class rule. I know it's a little complicated for you to understand. If it does not clearly say you should not have something, then you can have it. Whereas a closed class rule is, if it says you can have one block, means you cannot have anything else other than what is mentioned there. That is a closed class. So it clearly says what you can have. If you ask, can I have something else? It means no. That is a closed class rule. It's a little, it's a bit of a, complicated thing to understand in the first instance. I can, if he can write to me, I will give him some nice explanations in a very simple way to make him understand. And he can also look up the ERS. It says very clearly what is an open class rule and closed class rule. The definition is there, but I can explain to the person if he can write to me. So I don't know if I'm able to convey that. What is an open, what is not mentioned clearly as not allowed means it is allowed. That's what it says. Okay. Or what if it's mentioned that only this is allowed means everything else is not allowed. That is a closed class rule. It's a part of the equipment rules of sailing.
Would you advise race organizers or organizing authorities to have a pre-inspection expert to allow for a smoother passage during measurement? So it's actually pre-inspected by somebody, not necessarily an IM or NN, but it's pre-inspected and checked, kind of a small checklist, so that your measurement actually moves through much smoother.
Actually, this is a brilliant idea, and I 100% welcome this. That's one of the reasons I want to have as many national measurers as possible with a very small test, easy test. And if more people attend, at least if they don't make it as a qualified, a certified national measurer, he will know exactly what to do. And that person is good enough to do that pre-inspection, because we clearly tell them what should be there and what shouldn't be there, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Any person from any club, whether he's getting a certificate or not as a national measurer is immaterial. He will know exactly. You can appoint him as an OA and say, Mr. So-and-so can be the pre-inspection person. So he will check all the equipment and he's confident that everything will be okay. That means 100% when it comes to inspection, that inspection will be over in just a matter of 1 minute. So it's a very good idea. I welcome it.
So I think for those from YI and all the organizing authorities and those who are going to be part of organizing authorities in the future, I think at least in India, pre-inspection, because inspection sometimes, I think the numbers are going up dramatically, especially in the Optimist and the Laser. Pre-inspection is becoming very important. The next question is, would you advise measurement instructions along with sailing instructions, which actually clearly indicate to sailors things like, that, for example, the boat shouldn't be wet, or, the sailor should have a clear checklist even prior to pre-inspection, and then that measurement instructions, make measurement a lot smoother.
Yeah, I agree completely. That is what I meant by equipment regulations. Just a small piece of paper. Let us say if it's an event with only an Optimist class, there is a small checklist which is called equipment regulations that says, when you bring your boat, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, just check your sail should be like this, your number should be pasted like that, this should be there, your boat should be of this weight, this is how your boat should, these are the things it can have, this should not have, your spars should be like this, make sure your bands are there. Whatever an inspector is going to look for, should be in a small little paper or document called equipment regulation. That is what I spoke about when I started this topic. So it's a very good idea. It saves a lot of trouble for the equipment inspector. And also, I feel the sailor will be more prepared for bigger things to come because he knows everything now. He doesn't have to fear about equipment inspection at all. He knows like everything is perfect. It's a very good idea. I welcome it.
Thanks, Ajit. Let me look at some more. This is a question from Aman Vyas, I think, now at INWTC. What about restored equipment, example, foils which have lost the class legal supply? This happens with boats also. And I've seen this happen with opties and lasers. And the class legal supply logo due to restoration, but in some dimensions as original. How do you handle situations where the stickers and logos and the ISAF logo are missing, but the boat still measures? I mean, how would you take care of situations like this, both for equipment as well as boats?
I can just quote only from the ERS, which says if these marks are not there, you can't sail them for any national championship and international championship. But you can sail them in a club regatta. At a club regatta, I don't think it's going to be very, stringent as far as inspection is concerned. So it is now up to the person who's appointed as a measurer to be smart enough to know that, hey, this looks exactly like an Optimist. There is nothing which is different. He has not altered it. The weight is also not made lighter, and he can allow them to sail, but at club regatta levels. But not at national championships. It is not allowed. It is illegal. And for selections, absolutely not. And for internationals, no. It has to be with all these paperwork. It's like driving a car and saying, I lost my RC book, but this car is exactly as per how other cars should be. Nothing is different. Will they accept it? They will not. It's like that. Simple as that.
Okay, Ajit, I can actually elaborate for Aman on this, and that is sometimes you've lost your boat registration certificate or your sales certificate. Sometimes the stickers are simply not there. You can write to the manufacturer who sold you the boat, and the manufacturer will in turn write to the class association, and you can get a set of spare stickers. You can get a set of an ISAF sticker. You can get the boat certificates back. It's a cumbersome process. It's a slightly lengthy and sometimes very expensive process, but the possibility does exist. The next question, Ajit, I hope you're okay with that. The next question. Very few NORs, I have not seen international, definitely not the national ones, clearly specify the specifications of a flotation device. Can this not be made compulsory by World Sailing, that you actually specify in the NOR and then inspection becomes very simple?
I cannot speak for World Sailing, but if I was a part of the NOR, and if normally the NOR is supposed to be circulated to the jury, the protest committee, the race committee, and the technical committee, but they do not do that. Whenever anything comes across my place, I mention very clearly that the PFDs, if the class requires the PFD, should conform to these standards. I will mention it. So you can only request the organizing authority in future when you're making a document as an NOR, and if there is something regarding PFDs, please put in brackets that it has to conform to ISO standards. That's it. Simple as that.
So for all the organizing authorities who are attending this program and those who see it later, I think at least in India, it's important. This whole PFD specification should probably be made mandatory, or pre-inspection should probably become part of the process, and the equipment ERS should also become part of the process. One last question for the day, and that is, for one design classes like Laser or Optimist, can the measurement process not be made a lot simpler and quicker because they're tightly one design?
Optimist is actually, I'm not an Optimist class measurer. I know Laser is a one design class, but you can actually build an Optimist. That's what the class says, and you have to get it measured with a template. So I don't know whether it falls within that purview. But anyway, to answer your question, that, like you said earlier, the class rules say what should be in a boat, what should not be in a boat, what is expected. You can appoint somebody to do a pre-measurement so that when they come for the actual measurement by the appointed authority, he has very little things to do. He knows that it's already pre-measured by a person who has some knowledge, and he just does a very cursory glance over the thing and he passes it. So I completely welcome this pre-measurement process for not just any one design class, for any boat, as long as that person has some knowledge. So it will be a good idea for that person to attend a clinic or something like that, so that he's armed with, not only that, we give a lot of documentation which he can refer to and he can talk to people. So it's an excellent idea to have a pre-measurement. Unfortunately, what happens is most of the equipment lands up just one day before the equipment inspection. So it's very difficult for you guys to plan the pre-inspection. For equipment which is already there in the premises 1 or 2 days before the event, yes, you can definitely do that. And also, say this is pre-measured, so that the equipment inspector knows that he hasn't to, he doesn't have to stress himself looking at each and everything, because a competent person has already gone through it once. So it's a brilliant idea. I welcome it.
So hopefully World Sailing and all the class associations probably start bringing this pre-inspection routine as a best practice. One last question on the same topic, and that is when you have large-scale chartered boats, let's say for the Optimist very often, and don't you think when the boats are chartered, the entire measurement process can be done and labeled prior to the sailor coming in, and then there's just a last minute with this in the presence of the sailor if there's any issue. So it's already pre-measured and pre-certified, so you don't waste time.
Can be done. It is done only for what is called supplied boats. That's the term.
Supplied boats, I meant supplied.
Okay. Suppose, let's say that you're going to host a world championship at YCH. You're going to get about 4 container full of charter boats. Okay. What you can do is you can call a measurer in advance, ask him to set up all the equipment in sets. So one boat has everything in it. So he can do all the measurements in leisure and record all the data. So if you're putting sticker number 007 for one particular hull, that same sticker number, that's how I like to do it in all the other spas, and keep it all together so that they don't get mixed up. So a guy who's allotted sticker number 007 will have a mast with 007, will have a boom with that, will have his hull, will have his other foils also with that. So it can be done. It is also being practiced for supplied boats.
Thanks, Ajit. That was a fantastic session, and you've, what normally is considered a pretty dry topic. You've got a fantastic audience here, and I think you've made it a really, really communicative session. Thanks very much again for being with us, and hopefully more and more such sessions I'm sure we will be doing. I think the schedule for these sessions, please register on WhatsApp, everybody, so that we can communicate exactly what the next sessions are. There's going to be probably a small hiatus, a small break of about a week. And after that, we'll get back to you. And as they say on TV, stay with us. There's going to be a poll now. And we'd like you to respond to that poll before we close shop. Thanks, Ajit. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.